Hey guys. Alright, so in this video we're going to go over the Brand of Deception Runemaster build. We're going to go over everything in depth and cover everything you need to know about the build in this video. Okay, so there's two main variants to this build that you should know about before you actually start playing this. The one we're going to cover today is my version, the int stacking version, more like kind of standard approach you could say to building the character. And there is another version from Mr. Frozen Sentinel. He has a very cool strength stacking version using the cleaver solution, getting a lot of armor and that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that way of building the character, you can go check out his videos on that. I'll have a link in the description for his version of the build. You can go check out if you're interested. Okay, so what is this build? So this build is a very fast speed farmer, I would say. I'm currently at about 900 corruption on it, although I wouldn't say this build is the best corruption pusher because, well, at least the int version that I'm playing right now, because it is, I would say it's a little bit on the squishy side. We do have a decent amount of ward and sustain, but at like, this level of corruption, it is starting to get a little bit hard to kill the shades and that kind of stuff, so I wouldn't say it's the best like high corruption pusher, but extremely fast farmer for like if you're doing a favor farm or that kind of stuff. Extremely fast because you get like really fast movement speed. You can set it up to be basically a walking simulator auto bomber where you just walk around and it zaps everything and everything just kind of dies. Alright, so this build is doing its damage pretty much all from the Brand of Deception in the Runemaster passive tree. So we need to be a Runemaster to play this build. Can't be a sorcerer or spellblade, unfortunately, and we can apply the Brand of Deception with any kind of lightning skill that costs 15 mana. So this is very important. First of all, the lightning skill. So what does this mean? If you're kind of newer to the game, a lot of skills will have tags on them. So if we go take a look at the lightning blast, if we hover over it, you can see that on the scaling tags it says lightning. So that means this is a lightning skill. There's a lot of other skills like this. So one interesting example is Elemental Nova. So this one is a lightning cold fire spell. And if we spec into the cold Nova, it'll only have the cold tag until we actually give it the lightning tag, right? So, and with this, it'll be a lightning spell because it has a lightning tag. So even if you're hit with the cold Nova or the fire Nova, it's still going to apply the brand because it's a lightning. It still has a lightning tag, right? Same thing with something like Fireball, which actually is a fire spell, but if we give it the lightning tag with something like Plasma Ball, or there's those unique gloves, it'll then gain the lightning tag and then be able to apply the brand. So there's a lot of different skills you can actually use to apply your brand, just so long as they cost 15 mana. So in this version of the build, I'm going to go over a Lightning Blast setup. Because Lightning Blast doesn't have that many ways to increase its mana cost, it's very important that we make sure that our skill is costing 15 mana. So the way we're doing this is we just spec into this additional mana cost, and then we make sure we're not using any kind of weapon or anything that reduces our mana cost, right? Because like wands will have minus 3 to 5 mana cost, so we don't want that. So that's why we're using a scepter. Okay, so that's very important that you need to know about this build. A lot of people get this mixed up and like, why am I doing no damage? It's because you're not, your skill doesn't cost 15 mana, or it's not a lightning skill. Okay, and then how do we scale the damage? So we scale the damage with the orders and position node here. So this gives us 6% more damage per 1% shock chance. This is the main way we're going to scale our damage. And so you can see right now I have 840% shock chance. So times this by 6, and that's how much more damage you have on your brand. So pretty insane. We're probably close to like, what, 4,000, 5,000 more damage. So that's the main scaling, vector for the skill. And then aside from that, since it's a lightning skill and a damage over time, we can use things like elemental damage over time for increased damage, or, increased lightning damage or increased damage over time and that kind of stuff. So, and also I guess lightning penetration. So that's kind of your scaling, the way you're going to be scaling your damage. Another thing is, since it's ailment, the skill that applies the ailment These kind of generic more damage multipliers on your skills will also apply to the ailments they inflict. So things like front-loaded will increase your brand damage, right? Because it's keep in mind that it has to say like lightning blast deals more damage. It can't be things like this thing here, lightning blast hits deal more damage. This won't apply to the brand, right? So just generic deals more damage will apply to the brand. So that's kind of how you can kind of choose your skill, mainly for your clear, which one is good, how many more damage multipliers does the skill have. In this version, we're going to be using Lightning Blast for clear, and then we're going to be using Static for the single target, which actually has quite a lot of more damage multipliers. We can get some more damage from stacking some mana. And then we can also get some more damage from the distance the ball travels. So with Static Orb, the further away, like the longer it travels, the more damage it will deal. So that's something we can also use for the brand to give it a lot of damage on single target. Okay, and then another way we are going to be scaling our damage is going to be by stacking int. So intelligence by default gives us increased damage and ward retention, which is really nice. So it's a defense and offense stat. And then we can also use things like the Vilatria's Storm Crown. Right now I'm using a reforged one, but you would use the set item until you can get one of these. And this gives us 1% shock chance per intelligence. So we can stack a lot of intelligence. Right now I actually dropped quite a bit at 156 int. So this gives me another 156% shock chance. So actually, you know, it's good, right? It's a lot of damage, but not the biggest damage increase, because if you think about it, I already have 840%, so this 150 is not really all that much. You could actually even just, once you have this much shock chance, you could actually just run something else probably, I think. Anyways, so that's kind of how we are scaling the damage, the shock chance, the increased elemental damage over time, that kind of stuff, and then scaling int. Okay, so as for defenses, right now you can see it's kind of interesting. I have 555% ward retention. But we are going to be using the Wall of Nothing. So with this chest, it's actually really cool. It's like my new favorite chest. We get some of our endurance threshold as ward decay threshold. Right now I have about 1,000 ward decay threshold, but on optimized setups you can get over 1,500 or even more. If you actually specialize more into this, you can get like over 2,500 in ward decay threshold. And the way ward decay threshold works is you can kind of just read it in the guide, so we won't really cover it here, but basically it gives us more ward pretty much. And then we're going to be gaining ward per second. You can see I have a decent amount, just right now 278, and then we're going to be using the ward per second per gone rune affix on the body armor, and if you can get it, on the helmet as well. So whenever we have our 3 gone runes up, you can see that now I'm at 626 ward per second. So you can also get some more ward per second on idols and that kind of stuff. And the main way we actually just gain our ward is by having, you know, ward per second, getting a lot of this, and then having a lot of ward decay threshold, and then having a lot of ward retention. So we're not getting that much ward on hit, pretty much no ward on hit. You can get ward on kill on the gloves. But anyways, that's pretty much how we are getting our ward. That means we don't ever want to use the Runic Invocation, because if we use Runic Invocation, we're going to lose all of our ward, right? So, but we do have to keep it on the bar pretty much, because otherwise we won't gain the runes. So that's how I'm getting all my ward pretty much. All right, so let's jump into a monolith. We're going to go over 2 different setups. I'll show you a setup I'm using for like blasting monoliths, and then another setup that I use for killing bosses. And it's pretty simple. You don't have to do anything really annoying. I just change either my Flameward or my Static Orb for static. All right, so let's load up a monolith. We'll do a false temple because I don't know, it's like the best map in the game, probably the best monolith in the game. All right, so we'll go over the gear and skills and explain that later, but I want to show you some interesting things you can use for clear. So there is a champion affix for chance for lightning blast to chain additional times. This is really good, although I'm going to lose quite a lot of damage doing this. So I don't know, I don't recommend you do this unless you actually have a lot of damage already. Then if you want some more ward, you can do your gloves with the ward decay threshold and ward gain on kill. I'm going to lose a little bit of damage, but we can just try it out and see what it's like. So with the static, we do have to get a few charges, but it is pretty fast, so we'll just attack a few times and we'll eventually get our charges. And you can go pick up the altars, and yeah, that's why I really like this build, is mainly because this map also exists. So once we start getting our charges and everything, you can see that we're just going to go walk around and everything is just like getting deleted, right? So all you do is just go pick up the shrines and everything is dying. And this is like 900 corruption, guys. Right? Although ideally, I think you probably want to stay at the favor cap, which is, what, 600 corruption, I believe. You'll have a lot better time and pretty much have the same amount of favor and that kind of stuff drops. So, but, I mean, you can see that's why this build, it's just insane, right? You just run around and zap everything to death. Don't even have to attack or anything. I mean, you can cast your lightning blast every now and then if you want, but, and like everything's automatic. And this is like, I don't know, it feels like pretty amazing running this. Anyways, so go and kill off these guys. Okay, there's like a champion. We'll get back to him later. But this map is just so fun. I've been just running these over and over. Gaining a lot of favor, a lot of like good item drops, grinding a lot of gold. And honestly, I know you guys don't really like having PoE references in these videos, but this is the closest I've ever felt in last Epoch to playing with a headhunter from PoE. It's like this map. Anyways, so let's just finish up the map and let's go. We got all the shrines. Alright, so let's go kill the Mr. Champion. With this setup, we can go kill him with static, because static is going to do like big DPS. Got like 600% more damage on static. So just go zap him and he should be dead. If not, we can just cast lightning blast at him. Oh, he has this like damage reduction thing. Alright, but that is sort of the monoliths, what it's like, and let's go do a Lagon. So you can see what the bossing DPS looks like. For bossing, we're going to be using Static Orb. Let's go jump into a Lagon, 900 corruption. I'll probably go push to 1,000, but like I said, this character is not really a corruption pusher, I would say. I mean, you can do it, obviously, because, I mean, I'm doing it, but I don't know. It's a little bit rough on the shades, like once you get to like 900 corruption. Anyways, but yeah, that's why I think speed farming on this character is what you want to do. If you just want like a map blaster, just go and speed farm tons and tons of favor really quickly, then this is probably the character you want to do. I think this is probably going to be the fastest mage build this season, unless there is some like way to make Frostclaw good again. Make Frostclaw great again. This is going to be the fastest speed farmer for mage, I think. And you see my movement speed is pretty good. Oh, actually, we're using the wrong items. Let's put our DPS items on. But my movement speed is 89%, right? Normally in maps. But I don't have haste, right? So you can get haste in the build with there's like, you can do like the ring for haste, the Quicksilver ring, or what could you do? You could also do the new relic. You can do like on your boots, you can get the experimental affix, right? So there's a lot of ways to get haste, and with haste they're going to be at like 120, 130% movement speed, just blasting through these maps. So it's going to be really good, I think. Anyways, Lagon, pretty much dead. If you guys didn't know, you can just stand here and he never hits you. So if you're a ranged character, Lagon is like a piece of cake to take down. And any minute now. Oh shit. That Moonblast is the only thing that can actually do damage to me in this fight. Alright, so let's go over the skills that we're going to be using in the build. First of all, let's talk about Lightning Blast, the main clear ability. So first of all, we need to go get the mana cost up to 15, right? If our skill isn't costing 15 mana, we're not going to be applying the brand. After that, we just go and get Lightning Attunement, and these points here are personal preference. You can put these points wherever you want, You can put it into ward gain on hit, you can go into blind, you can go into cast speed, you can go into chaining to yourself to get a little bit more damage. Do whatever you want with these. I'm kind of liking the multi-blast because every now and then I will self-cast it. You know, sometimes you might need to if there's like, you know, 100 different mobs around you. The auto chains won't really be enough. So you can just, so that's why I kind of like the, how would you say, the chance to double cast, which is, does happen quite a lot. Okay, and then Divergence. This is nice because normally you shoot Lightning Blast out, and then from there it chains around. But what this does is you'll shoot, you can still chain, but sometimes it'll shoot the bolts from you instead of chaining, right? So if you have four chains, sometimes it shoots 4 bolts out from yourself. And this is good because, first of all, the chains take a little bit of time, so it's more instant clear. And second of all, say there's a mob where this portal is, and there's a mob over here by the waypoint. With Divergence, I can shoot here, and we'll hit both targets. With the chain, it might go here and then go off over here, and you'll miss this guy. So a little bit better clear with Divergence, and that's pretty much it for Lightning Blast. And for Static, this is like the auto bomber setup we're going to be doing. And then for here, all we really need is Overload, and then these points here. And then after that, so we get additional charges from Lightning Blast crits, and without even investing into crit, all you need is like this node here and this node here, and you will be self-sustaining your static overload charges, right? Then after that, we get the max charges and the run more charges when we're moving. Okay, Static Orb, this is what I prefer to use for my single target nuke because you could see it's very easy to use. There's no setup, you just cast it and it's gone, right? And you can use it from very far away. It has a huge AoE, and so it's very easy to hit. And yeah, I kind of like this because there's no setup basically, and it makes it so I can just shoot this out and then run around and dodge all the boss abilities, play really safe, and then 3 seconds, 4 seconds later shoot another one. Okay, and then Static Orb also does have a lot of damage baked into it, like we mentioned, with the more damage from like how far the projectile has traveled. It also does give us lightning aegis in boss fights. And then we can also gain more damage from our mana, and this is actually quite nice because of I don't have a lot of mana right now, but in the Runemaster tree there is the Cerulean Runestones node, which gives us mana gained as endurance threshold. So if we get mana, we get more damage on our Static Orb, and then we also gain endurance threshold, which gets turned into ward decay threshold with the Wall of Nothing. So we get defense and damage while stacking mana as well, so it's quite nice. I think it's kind of a nice synergy. Okay, Teleport, same kind of thing, standard thing here for the free cast and stun immunity. And, you know, so if you're having trouble on bosses, like you can see it's actually not costing that much mana to cast Static Orb. You can cast quite a few of them, and you get a decent amount of mana regen, right? 13 or so. So I've never ran out of mana in a boss fight, and if you are running low, then just teleport Static Orb, you know, and teleport Static Orb. And I also have my Static Orb set up so that if I'm in a real pinch, I can get mana back with Lightning Blast. So what I can do is I can teleport, then I can shoot Static Orb, and then cast some Lightning Blast, and that'll regen some mana. I've never really had to do this, but I just have it there because there's really nothing else to put for Static Orb. Right, these points are optional. You can do whatever you want with them. You can go into some more Lightning Aegis duration, get some reduced mana cost, get some Shock Ground, although it's kind of bad right now. Anyways, so that's the Static Orb tree. For Flameward, right now I have a full defense set up pretty much, and then I have it set to convert to lightning so that whenever I cast it, my runes don't change, right? Because I don't want to lose my rune, because then I'm going to be losing my ward per second. Alright, so let's go over the gear. Now, my gear is actually pretty progressed, so I will go over some planners for leveling and starter versions of the build at the end of the video, so keep that in mind. Okay, so the helmet, Velatria Storm Crown. Now, how do you make this? So basically, we have to shatter the Velatria set with the new shatter. What do you call it? Woven Echo. And then we need to find an exalted item. I think you should only craft this when you get a T7 on a T7. Don't go for a T6. It's not worth it. So basically, you need to find a T7 a helmet. Preferably you get one of these arcane visage bases, because this gives you more mana and cooldown recovery. It's like the best base. And you find one with a T7 affix that you want. If you know you're not picky, you can find anything else, but so you find one of those, and then what you do is you need to open prefix on it. So either seal whatever prefix there is, and then craft on the Velatria set, right? And I don't know, this part I'm not really too sure about, but I only crafted up to a tier 1 affix, right? Because I didn't want to waste the shards. And then what you're going to do is, I don't have any of them, but you use this rune here, the rune of Havoc, I believe it is. And this is going to shuffle the T7 affix, right? So say we had a T7 armor and we use the rune of Havoc, it has a chance to then shuffle that and say maybe turn our elemental resistance into T7 instead. And what we're looking for is getting the Velatria set up to T7. And then after that, you're pretty much going to have very low forging potential. This helmet started out with like 54 forging potential, and it took about like 11 Havoc runes to get this to T7. Super unlucky. Otherwise, this would have been an amazing helmet. Anyways, and then you just kind of craft on whatever affixes you want. So that's kind of how you make the helmet. Very hard to do a really nice one. But anyways, and I don't really think you should swap to one of these rare helmets until you can actually make a good one, because otherwise the set helmet is going to be better. Okay, so that's the helmet. And then let's see, for the weapon. So for the weapon, mine's really bad, but we need a scepter. Ideally we get an Argent scepter because this has increased damage over time, and this doesn't have any kind of reduced mana costs on it, so that's why we want a scepter. And so for the affix we want, Exalted is going to be the chance to shock on hit, obviously, because that's our main damage source. And then we want stuff like lightning damage, lightning penetration. You can do damage over time, or you can get some mana. Mana is going to give you more damage on your static orb, and also give you more ward decay threshold, so you get more base static ward. I like the mana affix, so I would go for shock on hit, lightning damage, mana, and then lightning pen for 4 affixes on the scepter. Now for the body armor, so this one is we're going to use the Wall of Nothing. Very important that we do get good rolls on it. Now keep in mind you can divine these with the new Woven Echoes, but divine it before you put your you slam it, basically, because when you divine it, it also will divine the Exalted affix you've slammed on. I made that mistake and actually bricked my chest and had to go and like I had to buy like 20 of these to like get it back to a decent divine, so keep that in mind. And we want the ward per second per gone rune on here, because this is pretty much like 80% of my ward regen is coming from this affix here. Okay, so that's the body armor. And then for the amulet, so in the planner I'm using Devotion, and the only reason I'm not using Devotion is because I can't get Fizz Res, and I planned to get Fizz Res on the helmet, but it didn't really work out, so I'm stuck using Bone Amulet. And I think it's actually going to be pretty hard to work in a Devotion, so maybe just use a Bone Amulet like this. All you need is shock chance, damage over time, mana, some resistances, pretty much. You get Frailty on here too if you can. For the offhand catalyst, we're going to be using a Opulent Catalyst, because this gives us int ward per second, ward retention, very good stats. And we want to get actually flat mana on here on the T7, ideally, because that's going to give you a good mix of offense and defense, I think. But I couldn't find any, so this is what we're using. And, you know, something like this will work as well. You know, lightning damage, elemental damage, damage over time. And you mainly just want to get the Void and Necrotic Res here, because, you know, we're using a lot of unique items, so you got to get resistance somewhere, and getting the Void and Necrotic here is the best way to actually cap those 2 resistances. Okay, so for the rings, we want 1 crab ring, and then we want 1 ocean ring. And if you're doing bosses, you can have 2 ocean rings, right? And then basically we want to get int here and elemental damage over time. Those are the 2 stats you want. Anything else is like optional. One good one is the ward. There's ward per second and ward decay threshold you can get on rings. That's really good. So you can get that as a 3rd suffix. For the belt, Orion's Descent. And for this belt, the reason we're using it is for the int, because it can go up to 25 int, which is actually insane. Anyways, so that's the reason why we use it. We want the elemental damage over time on here. That's pretty much all you need. So I would even use a well-rolled 1 LP over a 2 LP. After that, get armor, reduced damage from crits. I'd say is probably what you want to get here for the second one. I think there also is ward, some kind of ward mod you can get for a third mod, but that's pretty much it. Okay, gloves, we do atrophy, and here you get int and mana, I guess, if you want, like, you know, well-balanced stats. Or you can do something like this with the ward decay threshold and ward on kill. It's going to be a little bit more ward sustain, but I don't know. I'd say go for the T7 int and maybe a T5 ward decay threshold or mana. Okay, for the boots, get Blood of the Exile, and we want movement speed. If you want more damage, then you can go for a T7 int. You'll still be fairly fast without the, what do you call it? T7 movement speed. And then Stormcarved Testament, just get int here. And for a second affix, you can go for mana or elemental damage over time. Now, for all of our idols, we're going to be using these shock chants. And get your resistances here, right? So you can get elemental resistance. If you have enough resistance, then you can get stuff like lightning damage, or you can get ward per second and ward retention. This is the one I would probably go for if you have enough resistances. And then for the small idols, there is ward per second and health and mana idols. I would use these, or double mana. And then, I mean, I could actually probably use these poison res ones all over here. These are really good too, because you're going to need poison res, right? Damage over time, less damage taken over time, and poison res. So this combo is what you want for capping poison res if you really care about that. But that's pretty much it for the idols. Now let's go over the blessings. So for the blessings, let's see, let's start here. So Black Sun, we're going to get the ward decay threshold and ward on kill. For Lagon, we get shock chance. Then for Reign of Dragons, all resistances. Age of Winter, endurance threshold. And Spirits of Fire, endurance. Now these two is something that I'm not 100% sure of. Since we are already building into a lot of endurance and endurance threshold, then it kind of makes sense. Like, so it's kind of like one-shot protection in a way. But another thing you could do is you could go for the armor. So you could do the flat armor and the increased armor. That combo might be good as well. Now, in order of which blessings to farm first of all, you want to farm your resistances on Reign of Dragons. Right, so get this first, then we get the shock chance, and then you get the ward decay threshold, and then after that I would do Age of Winter and then Spirits of Fire last. So that's the order of farming up your blessings. And let's go over the passive tree. So the planners are going to have what do you call it, skill progression. We'll go over that when we cover the leveling versions. But for the mage tree at the moment, this is what we're using at level 100 for the passive tree. For the mage skill, and then let's go into Spellblade real quick. We're just going to get a little bit of ward decay threshold from our int, so that's quite nice. And sorcerer, we're going just to the leech because we do need leech, and this is the best way to get leech without getting it on gear. It also does give you a lot of lightning pen, and we get a lot of we get a lot of int. We do get a lot of mana and some mana regen over here. Okay, Runemaster. So for Runemaster, basically, it's, I don't know, it's kind of standard setup, you could say. One thing that I'm using that I don't see a lot of people taking is I'm getting a lot of the ward per second stuff here. We can't take this one, unfortunately, but yeah. And then we go into all of these here, and this is our brand scaling. So that's kind of the tree. Not really much to talk about the tree, I guess. Anyways. So that's the passive tree. Now, let's go over some of the other starter setups and leveling guide. Alright, so in the description of the video or in my Discord, I have a bunch of planners here. So the one we looked at today is this endgame planner. Right, so this is the one we're looking at. And this is, you can see, with ideal gear, we have, you know, devotion, we actually have fizz and poison res on our helmet, and that kind of stuff. So this is kind of like the ideal setup. Okay, so let's go over some of the starter setups. So there's two I'll include here. One is just like a standard setup where you self-cast Lightning Blast. Another one is going to be the Auto Bomber setup with static. So for the standard setup, you can see this is kind of what your starter gear is going to look like. This is my actual gear I had. We have the Velatria Stormcrown helmet, and we just have a rare or exalted item with the ward per second mod on it. Although, if you could get one of these, like a T6 is okay. Anyways, so this is kind of the setup here, and then all of our items, you can see it's really easy to get, you know, a 1 LP slam, so that's why I actually had all these items at like day 1, pretty much. Right? So this is kind of the setup we're going to be doing, and not really much changes, except if you're going to be self-casting a Lightning Blast, one nice thing you can do is you can just spec into Runic Invocation for Inscribed Patterns, which gives you a little bit more ward per second. That's pretty much it. Okay, so that is this setup over here. You can go take a look at there is no kind of progression scaling in this, but in the leveling one there should be. So this one is not super important, I would say, for the progression. Basically what you want to do is because this is like when you're in empowered Maulist anyways, right? So I'll go over the leveling setup first. But basically for leveling is you max out Runemaster first, right? You go into 5/5 here, rush this, then in Sorcerer you rush the what do you call it, the Leech. Then after that you fill in the rest of the Runemaster, fill out the rest of then you get 5 points in Spellblade, and then fill out Sorcerer last. And the Auto Bomber setup looks like this. This one was when my gear was a little bit more advanced, so you can see I actually had the Wall of Nothing and the actual belt and that kind of stuff. But this is more of a cheaper gear because it has the Velatria Stormcrown. I would say you don't have to worry about crafting the set helmet. So this should be pretty achievable. This setup, by the way, went all the way up to about 800 corruption. And this setup would probably still be doing the content I'm doing right now, totally fine, exactly the same. The only thing I'm actually gaining from the rare helmet at the moment is a little bit more ward per second. So keep that in mind. And then leveling. So leveling the pre-brand setup, how do I level is you want to get the Avarice from the quest reward. And then what I was doing is I'm using Fireball. You can see these ones have progression, right? So we use Fireball with Spreading Flames. Very OP because we get 200% pen. Even on League Start, this is just melting everything. And then for single target, Frostclaw Ignite. That's it. Frostwall, pretty good too. But that's the leveling setup. You can look at the passive tree. It also has progression planners. And then once you get about, I'd say 70-ish, 90%-ish shock chance, you don't even need the helmet. I didn't even have this to start. You just need a little bit of shock on your weapon, a little bit of shock on your amulet, and you're good to go. And that's what I was using pretty much. And then you just go for the skills. This is sort of what I was using. I used Glyph of Dominion early on for a little bit of extra shock chance, because you need a little bit of damage every now and then. And this is pretty much what I did. This one has progression in it, so you can follow these. Then as for the passives, the passive is a little bit different because we don't need that much defense at this point, right? So we're not taking a lot of the ward, going more into this damage kind of stats, right? Pretty much. And also speccing into these 2 mana regen nodes. This is going to help you out, really help you out early on when you're lacking mana regen. But yeah, this is the actual setup, the early game setups. You can go check out. Alright guys, but I think that'll be it for the video. I think we covered everything. Let me know if I forgot something or you have some questions, put it in the comments. But yeah, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.